Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I am your host. And today I have the one, the only, the inimitable Sonia. I forgot to ask her to say her last name. Can you believe it? That's such a rookie mistake, but it's Maslovskaya, I think. Maybe she's going to correct me when we come back and bring her on. But listen, do me a favor and share this out to everybody that you know. Share it with everyone because this woman is incredible. You're going to love her. She's going to shame me for pronouncing her name wrong, but you're going to love her anyway. So please share this out. Stay with us. We'll be right back. See you in a minute. And we are back. Let me bring Sonia on. Sonia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ken. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here.
Look, my friend Joe Ingram's already saying rookie move. I know. Sonia, say your
Actually,
last name.
maybe not so, because this gives me an opportunity to ask you for your advice. My name is hard to pronounce. It is Maslovskaya. And to make everyone's lives easier, I was thinking of changing my stage name to Sonia M. What do you think?
That would probably be easier for American audiences.
Yes.
Maslovskaya. It's Skaya.
Skaya. Yes,
Maslovskaya.
Maslovskaya, but Sonia M is
Maslovskaya.
also good.
Sonia M is awesome. So Sonia, I'm excited to have you here. You are an amazing human being that I recently met at Tony Caruso's event for the eWomen's Network. And listen, I just was like, okay, I got to get this woman on my show. I can't wait to have her on. And here you are. So this is really about helping people have a breakthrough in life. That's what my show is about. I would imagine life has not always been easy for you, and you've had ups and downs, and that's what we're here to talk about. So, Sonia, start with where you were born and raised. It sounds like you have a deep South Texas accent.
Oh, you are so good at accents. How did you know? I was born deep in the South, however, not in the South of the United States. I was born in the southernmost part of Russia, close to the Black Sea, in the area called the Northern Caucasus, which is very rich in ethnical diversity. I grew up in a multicultural family, and I have a deep respect for different cultures and different languages. And I have to share that from a very young age, I had this fascination with communication and languages. So, my dad worked as a professor of linguistics, and I inherited this love for languages and communication from him. So,
Wow.
after I graduated from a linguistic university in Russia, I was a young adult. I was 22, and I moved to America. I moved to Boston. It was a spur of a moment decision. I came here completely by myself with no friends, no family, no support system. And as you can imagine, Ken, I had my share of challenges as an immigrant, as a woman in corporate. So I'm happy to share my story.
Wow. 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 You came here all on your own.
I
Now,
did.
did you have some money in your pocket at least to get
I sure
started?
did. I had a whole lot of $1,200 in my pocket.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So
Mm,
$1,200, you moved to Boston, which
yes,
is beautiful. That's a great place
it
to
is.
land.
Yes.
And so where did things go for you from there? You had a degree in linguistics.
Yes.
Um what is a degree in linguistics? Like just learning different languages? What is it?
Yes, so linguistics is a study of languages. You're absolutely correct. And I
Okay.
studied English and French, but my English was not perfect. I did not speak English the way I do now. I had a thick accent. I didn't
Wow.
understand the nuances. I didn't understand the idioms. And I'll tell you, my very first job in Boston, I worked for a travel company, a fantastic travel company, and they trained me for about a month and a half. I was supposed to be a customer service rep. And the day before I was supposed to start, I freaked out because I thought that, who am I? I'm just straight from Russia. People will not be able to understand me. I will have a hard time understanding different types of dialects, people calling from Texas and Georgia, Alabama, New York. What if I don't understand them? And I had this complete freak out and I almost quit. And I had a fantastic trainer who talked me out of the ledge. And I'm so glad that I stayed because eventually, miraculously, a few years later, I was asked to be a brand speaker and to represent the company and to be the voice and the face and travel around the country and speak to large groups of audiences from
Wow.
100 to 700 people. So that was such a great experience for me.
That is incredible. So, my buddy Jay Fox says, "Why did you move to Boston? The Boston Tea Party?
I wish
Why,
it.
yeah, why Boston? That's a
Yeah,
great
why
question.
Boston? That's a great question, Jay. Thank you for that question. It was just a dot on the map. I
What?
thought maybe New York, maybe Boston. I did knew a couple people in Boston, and I just said, let me see what's going on in Boston. And at first, I lived in the small town of Salem that has a lot of witch history.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. So, okay, so here you are in this company. You start as a CSR, right? A customer
Mhm.
service rep.
Yes.
You end up becoming a speaker. And was that like a speaker trainer? Were you training people in the company? What was
Not
your
yet.
position?
No, at that time I was speaking to customers. So we
Oh,
had
okay.
presentations and I was speaking to customers on behalf of the company. And that was a phenomenal, phenomenal experience. But if somebody told me that this is what I was going to be doing when
Yeah,
I first moved to America, I would have never believed them because
yeah,
I had so many, I had a lot of doubts about myself.
yeah. Imposter syndrome times 100, probably.
Yes, absolutely.
I can't imagine, like, I can't imagine moving to Russia and getting a job as a CSR in Russia, especially when I don't speak any Russian. So that
Yes.
would
Well,
be
speaking
tough.
languages helps.
Yeah, right?
Mhm.
So, okay, so started there. You're not in Boston currently. I
Correct.
know where you live now, but,
Yes,
so talk about how things kinda before you do that, let's go back to growing up in Russia.
sure.
I wanna talk about that
Okay.
because I love culture and cultural differences. And, I think that people in America, we have a tendency of living inside this box and can't really see outside of it. And, Russia is a beautiful country. There's a lot of unbelievable history there.
Yes.
What was it like for you as a child growing up in Russia? Was it cold? I hear it's cold in Russia a lot. I hear that, right?
Yeah, I
What
love
was it
this
like?
question. I love this question because, like everybody, our childhood is the foundation of who we are, right? And what
Amen.
happens to us as children, it shapes us for the rest of our lives, right? The
Yeah,
good things and the bad things.
yep,
So it wasn't too cold where I was growing up. We had all of the beautiful four seasons. I actually had never seen as much snow as I did in Boston. I had never seen so
wow,
much snow in my life. And people would say, well, you're from Russia. Why are you complaining? And I would say,
right,
Russia is a vast country. I'm from the southern part of Russia.
right,
So
You're
Growing
like, it's warm and we lay on the beach all year in that part of Russia.
Well, in Sochi, which is where the Olympics were held, yes, people lay on the beach, but I was very close to Sochi. It was a very mild climate. We did have snow, but nothing extreme. And interestingly enough, I kind of knew since I can remember myself, that I wouldn't be living in Russia. And I had a strong influence. My dad was a strong influence, and he was not a fan of the communist regime. And a lot of his friends moved in the 80s to the United States. And I remember as a little girl, envelopes we would receive letters from his friends from America. And
Yeah.
most of the times, those letters were open because the government had to get into the letters and ensure that there was nothing bad said about the Soviet Union, right? And so
Wow.
sometimes even certain parts of the letter were crossed out. They were blacked out, and we couldn't read anything. We couldn't read half of the letter, so it was probably things that were complimentary of the United States. And you can
Yeah.
imagine me as a little girl, in the little apartment in Russia, getting these letters, opening these letters with my dad. So I developed this fascination with America. And I thought, what is this magical country that people have to escape to secretly? And you can't even talk about what's going on there. So I became really interested in what America is really about, and why shouldn't
Wow.
you be able to openly talk about how great it is?
That is, see, there is a perspective that people are unaware of.
Yeah.
I love what you just said. So you grew up during the Soviet communist regime.
Yes, I sure did.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so I didn't know that. You look like you're 28 maybe.
Oh, thank you.
Um so you are in this. Wow, and I didn't know that they open your mail and read your mail. That's insane.
Mhm,
So you grow up in communism. Is
mhm.
your did and you left, did your parents stay?
They stayed there. They came here much later. So I was the
Oh,
pioneer.
good for you. So but obviously the communism, at least what we see up front, ended. Um, I I
Yes.
I, I think they're trying to bring it back, but well, that's a whole nother topic.
It's a
But
dangerous topic, Ken.
yeah, I'm just kidding, KGB, and that doesn't exist. Um, so
Mm.
so you did your whole family end up coming over to America then
Yeah.
eventually?
My mom and dad, they joined me here. First, it was my dad, but at
Mhm.
that point, I had already had an established life in Boston, and I invited my dad over. He had his battle with cancer, and I was very happy to have him here. And then my mom moved here after my kids were born. I'm a mother of twin boys, Samson and Solomon, and my mom moved here because she wanted to help. It was tough, raising twins.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. So,
Mhm.
s- okay, so you no longer live in Boston.
No,
You brought half of Russia with you to the US. I'm
just two
kidding.
two people.
Hey, we have somebody very famous watching, Jim Keys, who's the former CEO of 7-Eleven and Blockbusters, watching us right now over on
Hello, Jim.
Instagram.
Thanks for tuning in.
Jim's awesome. I just hung up the phone with him. But so you're in Boston, you bring your family comes over. Where did things go from there for you?
I think that sometimes things don't happen to us, things happen for us, and we cannot see
Amen.
it in the moment, right?
Yeah.
And I went through my share of darkness when I lived in
Yeah.
Boston.
Yeah.
did have a great corporate job, but it wasn't really anything that was feeding my soul. And I was yearning for something more, and I couldn't really find it. And of course, the cultural differences still played a part. So there was a period of my life when I felt really disconnected. I felt disconnected from who I really was, and I felt disconnected from my purpose. And I fell into a deep depression. I'm such a positive person. I never imagined that that could happen to me, but it did. And it affected me really deeply. And it was the kind of depression that was paralyzing all aspects of my life. And then suddenly, I was invited by a friend to see a theater play. And it was just a hole in the wall little theater. And I had nothing better to do. And I went to see it. And I got awakened by that theater performance, and I got completely mesmerized. And I said to my friend after that, I said, "What is this technique? I've never seen anything like that." And he said, "It's the Meisner acting technique." And he said, "Why don't you give it a try?" So I went to try. There was a workshop on the weekend in Boston. And by the way, Boston has a fantastic theater scene. It's very connected to New York. New York actors come to Boston. Boston actors come to New York. So I started pursuing acting, and it was one thing that ignited my passion. And I was very serious about acting. I don't know if you are aware of it, but actually, your
No.
good friend Glenn Morshower, when we were talking at the Tony Caruso event, we found out that we were on the same show. We were on the Manhattan TV show.
Oh,
And so
wow.
acting is a huge part of what made me a good speaker and what made me a good speaking coach, because out of that darkness, I found the spark that really ignited my passion. And because I pursued acting with all my heart and soul, it taught me how to be vulnerable, and it taught me how to connect deeply with the audience, and it really contributed to who I am right now.
Wow. That's powerful. I did not know all that. Had
Yeah.
no idea actually. So you and at that point, so were you not employed anymore then, or
I
did
was
you?
employed. I was always pursuing more than one thing. Even
Okay.
now, I have a corporate career. I work for a great tech company in Santa Monica as the
Oh,
head of marketing, but I still have my other job, and I'm a single mom, so having
yeah.
two streams of income is important. But speaking and coaching and helping people overcome the fear of public speaking, as well as connect truly to their audience, find a unique message. That's what my passion is.
That is incredible. So you okay, so you gave away where you are now.
Yeah.
You're in California.
Yes.
Santa Monica is as far south in LA as I have been actually.
Okay.
That's as far as I've been. But so when you were in Boston, you went and had this theater experience. You ended up getting into acting,
Yes.
and how did that go? And you're still working a corporate job at the
Yes.
time, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
How did that all work? How do you go do a television show or a movie and have a job?
Yeah, that's a great question. At that time, I was only pursuing theater. And as you know, most
Oh,
theater plays, they're done in the evening, or there is
yeah.
matinee show on the weekend, right? So my corporate job, they were also very flexible with me. They knew that it was my passion. They knew I needed to feed my soul in addition to doing something intellectual. And they were kind enough to allow me to do that. So I did theater in Boston, and I did a play in New York at the small Manhattan Repertory Theater. But it really showed me that I need to go in that direction.
Mm,
And I really believe, Ken, that life is about sharing, whether it is sharing as an actor, sharing as a communicator. As a matter of fact, the word communication comes from Latin communicare, which means to share. So all of those experiences as an actor, as a communicator, it's all about sharing, right? And that's ultimately what I'm so excited about. So after I pursued theater in Boston, I wanted to do it on a TV. and I wanted to pursue film. And of course, Los Angeles is the place to do that.
Yeah.
So when I moved to Los Angeles, I was 30 at that time, and I studied acting at the great Ivana Chubbuck studio. And I got myself an agent. I started getting booked on TV shows and films. And I still probably would have been doing that if I didn't become a single mom, because it's a little too it's too much.
Yeah, I understand.
Mhm.
So when was the last time you were in a film or a television show?
It actually was the Manhattan TV show, which was filmed in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That was my last show. And then I decided I cannot do both my corporate gig and acting because, of course, you have to go to an audition. You can be on a set for 48 hours. So I had to
Yeah,
make a choice and I leaned into corporate. And at
yeah.
the same time, I was asked to start mentoring other speakers in the company because the company was expanding in that direction. And I found out at that time, Ken, that I actually enjoy helping others become powerful speakers even more than I like being in the spotlight.
Wow. Okay. So talk about that. I mean, I think that because I remember one day going, you know what, I'm gonna hang my shingle out, so to speak, and let the world know that I'm a speaker, right?
Mhm.
And for hire. And I felt so unqualified, right? Like although I was qualified, I still remember feeling that imposter syndrome. And Jay
Mhm.
just said it, like moving to a new country, learning a new language, study theater, moving from Boston to somewhere California. Wow, you take on a lot and handle it well. And I agree. I think you might be a little bit of an underachiever. I'm kidding, of course, but like
Thank
like
you, Jay.
I think that it's unbelievable what you just decide I'm gonna go do this and you do it. That's amazing to me.
Thank you.
What made you decide that you were qualified to be a speaker trainer?
I don't know if it was as much of an intellectual decision and knowing that I have qualifications. It was more of a passion. I really followed my passion. You know, if you look at it on paper, yes, I have a master's in linguistics. I've worked as a speaker myself. I presented at over 300 events, but that
Wow.
wasn't what was pushing me in that direction. It was really my passion for connection. And I've met throughout my professional career, Ken, so many people who have incredible knowledge, who have phenomenal experience, or who have life stories that could inspire others. But they're held back because of this fear of public speaking, because of
Mm.
the
Yep.
fear of being seen, or fear of not being perfect, or fear of not being good enough. Because to me, it's never just the fear of public speaking. There's usually something deeper underneath that. And so
Mm.
I thought, what if I could help people really break away from this fear and show the world who they are and help them share their stories, their knowledge, their expertise? And that really was so exciting to me. So it wasn't so much of an intellectual as it was a soul decision from my soul and from my heart.
You had the whisper. Glenn talks about the whisper,
Exactly.
you paid attention to it.
Mhm.
That's amazing to me. So what is it? Is it the training, coaching, teaching that you love more than anything else? Or is there, I mean, obviously you love your kids, but
Yes.
um what is it that if you had to do one thing only
Okay.
for the rest of your life, what would that be?
Aside from being a mother, if I could do one thing only and not worry about anything else in the world, I would be teaching people how to connect with others, how to be phenomenal speakers and storytellers, and how to connect not only from the mind, but from the heart. I always say that a good speaker will make you think. And a
Yeah.
great speaker will make you feel, but a phenomenal speaker will reach into your soul and will transform you. And I really believe that it is my mission to help people become those kind of speakers.
Wow. That's powerful. Did you come up with that, or is that somebody else that came up with that?
I
That
did
is
come up with that
amazing.
through training so many people, yes.
That is so, so, so good. So you are, yeah, wow. So I'm trying to put some comments up here and read through them, but so you been at the same corporate job all of this time, even when you were doing
No, no,
television
I
stuff?
went to a couple other companies,
Okay.
I was in the travel industry for 16 years, and then no,
Okay.
actually more than that, for 18 years, I believe, and then I went into
Wow.
tech. I was invited to try for this position as a corporate trainer, and I first worked
Okay.
as a corporate trainer and then became head of marketing, and to me, it all aligns,
Yeah.
selling, marketing, it's all part of communication.
It is. How important is it? I'm now I'm going to start asking rhetorical questions. But how important is um communication just for the average everyday human being that's not pursuing speaking, that's not pursuing the next rung on the corporate ladder, that's not, they're just living life.
Yeah. I think that I really like this question because it opens up another question. What is the biggest misconception about communication and public speaking? So when you say communication and public speaking, most of the time people think about a speaker on the stage or somebody like you doing interviews, right? Being on
Yeah.
TV shows.
Yeah.
But to me, unless you're talking to yourself, you are speaking in public. You are speaking to your coworkers, you are speaking to your friends. You are public speaking unless you are by yourself in the house speaking to yourself, which I do sometimes occasionally.
Yes, but even your electronic devices are listening to you now.
Exactly. Yeah, so how many of us are on social media? How many of us do reels and post on social media?
Yeah.
Anytime when you communicate with other people, you are speaking in public, and therefore it is public speaking. And I
Mm,
really think that by harnessing good, positive, respectful communication, that can elevate all areas of our lives.
wow. If you don't know Debbie Bettendorf, you guys need to meet. She has a big show and she's one of my favorite people in the world. You guys definitely need to meet. You need to be on her
You
show
hello,
too.
Debbie.
And for some reason she started calling herself Deborah. I don't know why, but it's Debbie to me. But talk about what you think. I see, and we've missed a lot of steps here. I'm probably going to go back a little bit because I'm so curious about what it's like growing up in Russia. Like, I don't know why. I want to know, like, what
I'm
what
happy
was
to
it?
share.
What are the differences between, I mean, you've been here long enough. You have children that have been in American
Mhm.
schools, and
Yes.
what are some of the differences that are like, how do I say this? Like, just school. Obviously I've seen videos and things, but what are some of the noticeable differences between living in Russia and living in the US?
Oh my gosh, there are so many differences, Ken. Where do I begin? I think culturally, there are a lot of differences between just the Russian mentality and American mentality. And at the risk of being criticized, I'm going to make a generalization. I think, generally speaking, Russian and Slavic cultures are not as optimistic and positive. If we look at the Russian literature, Dostoevsky and Tolstoy and Chekhov, it's all, it's very deep. The literature is very deep, and the conversations between people are very deep. You don't just have chit chat. You don't
Right.
just have small talk. There is no such thing as small talk in Russia. You get together with friends, you discuss deep topics, philosophy, history, politics, psychology. Everything is very deep and very serious. And the general inclination is a bit skeptical and pessimistic. I find that American mentality, generally speaking, is very positive, and I connect to it more.
Wow. Okay, but wouldn't most people like I realize that there's like my mother-in-law, for example, is her I don't know if it's her parents or but they, of German descent.
Mhm.
And I know some very mean German people. And I mean, very mean, just like very unhappy. I'm thinking of one woman in particular, but like my mother-in-law is not like that. She stepped off of God's right hand into this world. She's the most positive person in the world.
Mhm.
So I do know what you're talking about from that perspective. But don't you think that people want to be positive and happy, like, inside somewhere?
I think most people do. I think most people are looking to be happy. I think most people are looking to be happy by finding something outside of themselves. And eventually we come to this wisdom in our life that happiness really is an inside job. But the overall mentality and cultural influences, they're very strong, right? So even the thinking patterns, I think the thinking patterns that are imprinted on us as we're growing up when we're little, we're so influenced by the linguistic, and as a linguist there is such thing as linguistic patterns and how language and culture can impact your neurology, even. So yes, I do think that as human beings we're all trying to find that happiness,
Yeah.
but in terms of thinking patterns there are big cultural differences.
So now that you are like Jay says, you're Americanized. You are.
Yes.
And I only detect a slight Russian accent, by the
Yeah.
way. Um, so as a let's say I mean, you're a speaker, you speak at events, you do, and I know that you are doing a lot more of the speaker training, but what
Mhm.
is your objective when you are on stage in front of a
Mhm.
crowd? Right now, you're in front of a crowd.
Yes.
What is the objective that you have? Is it to teach linguistics? Is it to teach positivity? Is
Mhm.
it to teach people how to pull their heads out of their rear ends and live a better life? What is your
Uh,
objective?
well, that's a great question. It really the objective depends on the needs of the audience, and
Okay.
I always recommend whenever you are hired as a speaker, as a keynote, you want to get in touch with an organizer and you want to find out what does the audience want? What does the audience need? Right. So, for example, before the Speakonomics event, I got in touch with Tony and I asked her, who is going to be in the audience? What are they looking for? How can I best be of service? What can I best support them with? And then from there, by finding out the needs of the audience and the goal of the event, then you
Right.
want to craft your speech. So I think there is a lot of um, overall issue that I see with speakers right now is the lack of intention. It's intention deficit, not attention deficit. It's intention deficit.
Mm,
So as a speaker, you have to be super clear on your intention. So for example, today before your event, I reminded myself my intention is to share my life story, the ups and downs, and to inspire others. That's my only intention. But there are events where I get hired to speak, to teach specific skills. So, for example, I was hired by a financial company to teach the art of persuasive speaking, right? So that's a completely different objective. That
yeah.
means completely different content.
Wow. What to tell me more about that? I wanna know more about the persuasive speaking. I wanna do persuasive speaking.
Persuasive speaking. Well, there are several ways to be more persuasive. as and more impactful as a speaker, right? There's, for example, I really like Dr. Milton hypnotic language patterns. And those of you who are tuning in, if you are familiar with neuro linguistic programming,
Mhm.
NLP, that a lot of influential speakers lean into,
Yeah.
Dr. Milton's hypnotic language patterns are some of the most effective tools that you can use. Dr. Milton was one of the grandfathers of American hypnosis, and he was incredibly effective with his sessions. His patients would get much faster results in healing and recovery than anybody else's. So when uh, we look into what he actually did, he was using specific language patterns, which are now known as hypnotic language pattern or Dr. Milton's language patterns, that would
Wow.
put the other person into a positive state and were highly influential. So, for example, one of them is the pattern of presupposition. So, if I say to you, Ken, if you try these techniques, you will be an even greater interviewer. What I'm presupposing here is that you are a great interviewer already, right?
Right.
So
Right.
those kinds of things. So if you are interested in hypnotic language patterns, I highly recommend the Dr. Milton language patterns. And then there are things such as assumptive language, which is used in sales and in
Yeah.
persuasion. So this can be a whole different show.
No, I love, but see, here's the thing. I think, obviously you have an incredible life story. You've I mean, most people would never leave the country they were born and raised in and just go, I'm going to and look at what Jay is saying. Out of 550 some interviews, you've just reached the top
Oh
3 for
my
him.
gosh.
So,
That is
yeah.
that
But
is
see, and
incredible.
here's why. Here's why. See, I'm a diagnostician. I'm gonna diagnose. This is why you're literally you're telling your life story, but you're weaving in things to this conversation. Maybe it's because I ask brilliant questions.
You
I'm
do.
kidding.
That's great.
I'm kidding, I'm kidding. But no, you're weaving in information that people can actually take away and
Mhm.
apply to their life right now and change their life in positive ways. And that's what I love about what you're doing here. I love it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you really are a fantastic interviewer, and you make it so easy. Because
Thank
some
you.
of these things, I'll tell you, Ken, I've never shared.
Do you know if you only knew how many times I've heard that exact statement? That's so crazy. I don't know why. I just have one of those faces like you can just trust me to share the stuff. I don't
Yes,
know.
and you are a great communicator.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So you okay, so you have this vast knowledge base. Look, Jay says, "Can the can open?"
I know, Ken, I love it.
That is so funny. So
Mm,
you have this. I mean, that I've never thought. Like I know the guy, the father of NLP, that trained Tony Robbins. He's
yes.
Wyatt Woodsmall, who I've met and hung out with. So just a brilliant guy.
Mhm,
But talk about, because a lot of people think NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. A lot of
mhm.
people think that NLP is manipulative, and I would like to hear I mean, what's your take on that? Is it?
I I partially agree because sadly, the powerful techniques that NLP offers have been used in manipulative ways. And
Mm,
I can, as a linguist, I can identify that. Sometimes I listen to politicians and I will say, oh my gosh, this is this particular technique from NLP that they're using, but they're using it in unethical ways. They're using it by twisting the facts in the way that is more beneficial to them, right? So whenever I
but
teach my students these techniques, I always say you have to use this ethically because it could be also used as a weapon in manipulative ways.
right. I mean, just like a firearm can be
Yes.
used for protection or nefarious reasons.
Mhm.
But
Absolutely.
give me and the audience a real life example of NLP in action, can
Oh,
you?
sure, absolutely. Just
I
because
love your confidence about this, by the way. I love that.
NLP in action, just because you are tuning in to Breakthrough Walls podcast, you are already more successful. That's an NLP technique, right? That's the cause and effect. That's Dr. Milton pattern, cause and effect. Now, some
Love
might
that.
say, well, how can they be more successful? Because you can share the wisdom and you bring in speakers who can actually teach people something, not only inspire them, but also teach them. So this is one of the techniques, cause and effect.
So, what about politicians using it in manipulative ways? What's an
Oh my
example of that?
gosh. Just the same way they can use the cause and effect. And they can say, because this and this thing happened, that means that you should vote for my party. That means that you should. But one might not have anything to do with the other. But because
Right.
they're using those patterns and they're saying that with confidence, they're impacting the subconscious mind of the listener.
Wow. I find it interesting. I would imagine that before, who was it? Bandler and his
Richard Bandler.
partner.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, that came up that coined, I guess, NLP, although I think it probably has existed for thousands of years
Yes.
on some level. But they've coined it as something that they came up with. But
Yeah.
and again, if you identify speech patterns and you see that, I can understand why they say that. But so talk about, you know, I have you ever been in a position, you said you came here with $1,200 to your
Mm.
name,
Yes.
which is a lot compared to some people, right? That,
Right. Yes.
and it's not a lot compared to others. But you come to America, to Boston, um, with $1,200. And have you ever been in the position where it's like, I don't have enough money to pay my electric bill or pay for this or that, and what am I going to do? Have you ever had those situations in life? Because you don't look like you're that kind of person, but have you ever had that happen?
You would be surprised. Yes. $1,200 is certainly not a small amount of money, but that's barely enough to pay your rent in Boston.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
before I started working for that travel corporation, and by the way, with my first job, I was only making 32,000 a year. I remember that. I
Wow.
was, yeah, 32,000 a year. I was hired in 2022. I came to America right before 9/11. And so for a year, I didn't really have a job. I was trying to find a job, and my parents would send me as much money as they could. But yes, there were times when I couldn't pay for heat in Boston, and it was not a pleasant experience.
You
And
mean 2002? You said
oh,
2022.
2002. Yes, thank you for correcting
2002.
me. Yes, 2002. And yeah, it was tough. I had moments when I didn't have enough money to buy shoes. I remember that very clearly.
Yeah,
And what it did, it didn't break me. It just made me be very hungry for success.
I love that. Glenn is watching, by the way. Look at what he
Hello,
said.
Glenn. Oh, I'm so happy to see you here.
He
I was
says you are one of the sharpest guests I've ever heard on any talk show.
okay. We're done here. I can turn my camera off.
You're like, I have
Glenn.
reached the pinnacle in life. So
Mm,
I've had that in life. It can be challenging, and I we've pulled up to the house and like, why is the house so dark right now? And only to find out that, the electric company likes it when you pay your bill. Um, you know, talk about how you one of the things I like, because I've been busted, broke, and homeless as an adult, and I've been wealthy, and quite frankly, being busted and homeless is not fun, and being wealthy is much better. So, Talk about people. I believe you mentioned it earlier about childhood and how it imprints our brain and our personality and who we become. People are walking around in life living in these stories in their heads, and I think in a lot of cases allowing those stories to hold them back or keep them
Absolutely.
stuck.
Yes.
What do you think, besides fear, because that's the number one answer, you can't use that one. What do you think the number one thing is that's holding people back from having true financial success and true freedom and happiness in life? What do you think's holding them back?
I think it is limiting beliefs. I really do.
Okay.
You know, going back to Russia, I know you wanted to talk more about Russia.
Yes, yes.
I came from a family that was highly educated but was not financially well off. And I think that was common for life in the Soviet Union. My grandmother was a neurologist, a very good doctor. And my father, as I mentioned, was a professor of English. My grandfather was a rocket science engineer. It's funny to say that, but that's who he was. And my mom was a head of city library. So they were all
Wow.
intellectuals,
Wow.
but just because of how the structure in the Soviet Union was, that everybody was equal, that the doctor made as much money as somebody cleaning the streets or somebody working as a cashier. There was a small difference, but not that much. If I had that family here in America, we would have been wealthy, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
With
very wealthy.
those kind of positions that they held. But in
Yeah.
Russia, you just learn to be okay with having enough.
Yeah.
And there is something positive and something negative about it, because when you start getting more, you become really appreciative of what you have. And one of the things that I really appreciate about living in America is that we have these incredible opportunities that we don't have in other countries. That I think that's why a lot of immigrants really go after success in America, because it's so apparent to us. The amount of opportunities, the doors are wide open. All you have to do is just pursue, work hard, pursue your goal, right? And be passionate about what you're doing. We don't have these, at least at that time we didn't have those opportunities in Russia. So that mentality of having just enough and being happy with it, yes, it makes you appreciate things, but it also can kind of make you stumble, because, well, I have enough and maybe I don't need anything else, right? Maybe I don't need more.
Yeah.
So all of us have these limiting beliefs, I think, that are imprinted
Yeah.
in our childhood and imprinted by our culture and the environment where we grew up. And I think one of the most powerful things that we can do is challenge the status quo inside our head.
How? How do you recommend people challenge that status quo?
I recommend asking yourself powerful questions. And one thing, if I may go back, hello Rochelle, if I may go back just for a moment, we talked about public speaking, right? And how I really believe that communication and public speaking can elevate all areas of your lives. When I work with my clients and we take a deep dive into why they speak the way they speak, or what
Mm,
is holding them back, what is really behind that fear or that resistance to really show up fully and tell your story, usually it becomes a very deeply spiritual and emotional experience, Ken, because we can unravel what's really underneath that resistance, that pull back that's not allowing you to step into your full power. And a lot
mm,
of times, what I find out, it is either something deep in their childhood or it's a trauma that happens later on in life. So by unraveling this, we can really get to the root of what is holding you back. And it's not a simple answer, because it's going to be unique to each individual. But what I encourage everyone to do is look that fear and whatever is holding you back in the eye, and
yeah.
then get to know it and really understand, where is it coming from, and be kind of curious about it, not not be ashamed of it because it made you who you are, but get really curious about it and start challenging and ask yourself questions. Is that really so? Is what I'm thinking really true, or was it imprinted on me by my childhood or my life experiences?
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Hey, I have a question because when you were talking about you want to hear about Russia, I had this
Yeah.
thought. So you were there when the communism collapsed and
Yes.
it became
1998. Yes.
1998. Um, the day, the day that it all changed. Tell me, tell me what that, because you went from literally being a prisoner of sorts in a country to complete and total freedom, right? I mean, it was just in a day, it all changed.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you and your family, and what happened? What was it like that day?
I remember that day so clearly, and nobody ever asked me this question, Ken. But
Wow.
I remember this day very clearly. I was with my parents on the Black Sea, vacationing on the Black Sea.
Wow.
And we were trying to tune onto the news stations, and all of the news stations were playing the Swan Lake, the performance of the Swan Lake. And there was no news coming out. So we knew something was going on. We knew something was going on with the government. But for about 24, I can't remember if it was 24 or 48 hours, there was no news at all about what was happening. And all we
Wow.
could see on TV was the Swan Lake. So I remember that very clearly. So now the Swan Lake is associated with, in my head, with the collapse of the Soviet Union. But when the
Wow.
news finally came out of the full collapse and the change in government, there was a lot of uncertainty and there was a lot of confusion. And my family and I, we were away from our home. We were vacationing. And I remember my parents and their friends, they were discussing, well, what does it really mean for us? There was complete sense of chaos and uncertainty. And,
Yeah.
because as we discussed, Russian people tend to be more pessimistic and skeptical. It was for a long time, it was the doom and gloom. And then
Wow.
after a while, people realized, well, actually, this is the freedom, not only politically, religiously, but also commercially. And those people who were smart enough to figure it out, including my parents, they turned into entrepreneurial business. They started opening businesses. They learned how to make money very quickly, a lot more money than they had ever seen in their life.
Wow. 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 I absolutely, it's because I can't, again, I had a guest on, and my goodness, her name Rose Schindler. She was 93, I think, the day that she
Yeah.
was on the show. She had survived the Jewish Holocaust,
Mhm.
and she talked about the day that they were freed, and just again, chaos. It was a bit chaotic, and everything that transpired after that. And I just wonder, like, man, that had to be such a magical moment for everybody. I can't.
Yes, I think after the fear subsided, it
Yeah.
became a magical moment because people started to see opportunities.
Yeah, that is so amazing, so amazing. Sonia, I literally, like, I we could just extend this for the rest of the day. Like, we're just going to be on here, but I have
I
appointments, and
just
I'm
Yeah,
sure
I'm
you
good with it. I just need more coffee, but we can talk all day again.
I just love your
Mm.
energy. I love I wrote in my first book a quote that I heard from, I think, Dr. Wayne Dyer, when he says, pain is the predecessor of all wisdom.
Wow.
And you can't get to where you are, and I don't mean financially, and I'm sure you're doing well. I mean, hopefully living in California, for the love
Yes.
of God. Um like,
Unfortunate, thank you.
yeah. So, but you're you know, you've taken a lot of lumps, so to speak, in life, and it's made you this just amazing human being that's out here to make a strong impact in the world. And I admire that in you a lot. So well done. So
Thank you.
where can everybody watching follow you, get in touch with you if they want your coaching, your training, your how do they do that? How I'm gonna scroll something across the bottom. Is there a website?
Yes, there is a website. It's www.sonia, SONIA, letter M,
Yeah.
power, POWER, Sonia M Power, because I empower you.
.com.
.com,
Okay.
because my mission is to empower you with public speaking skills. You got that right. And I'm very active on Instagram and Facebook, so connect with me. It's Sonia Empower on Instagram. Send me a message. Let's chat. I love talking to people. I love talking about the power of communication. Jay is willing to deliver coffee, so we can continue. Thank you, Jay.
Jay lives here in Dallas. I don't think he can get to California in time. So
But I
um
appreciate the thought. Yes, Instagram, Facebook, you can find me through Sonia Empower. I would love to connect with you guys.
there's my wife. She's watching too. Yes, this has been,
Thank
oh
you.
my gosh, what a phenomenal interview this has been. And you're a phenomenal human being. So Sonia, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on today and sharing your truth and your authenticity. And you radiate love, and I love that about you. So
Thank you, Ken. It's
yeah.
been an incredible pleasure. And I'm going to be watching you, and I'm going to go buy your book now.
Oh, geez. It's a short one. It's 74 pages.
Okay.
Takes like an hour to read.
Yeah.
But listen, I genuinely do appreciate you and everybody watching. If you're listening on the podcast network, go to soniaempower.com. That's SONIA, the letter M, and then power, POWER. Go check her out, sign up for all of her stuff, spend all of your money with her, and learn how to become a better communicator. There's nothing more important in life than learning how to affect. I've said this 1,000 times at least. Like, you've got to learn how to effectively communicate with other human beings if you have any chance of joy in life. Like, that's just part of living. You got to communicate, and you need to learn how to do it effectively. So go to Sonia M, the letter M as in Michael, soniaempower.com, and follow her everywhere. Sonia, you're awesome. So thank you so
Thank
much. I
you, Ken.
appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. All right, everybody, have a great day. I'm ending the live stream. Go follow this lady. We'll see you all later.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.